How you doing today, guys? I'm about to cut some wood with my 036 here, and I actually noticed that my cutters are different lengths. You know, one of the reasons, if you've got a chainsaw, and if you notice when you're trying to cut a log, your bar is veering off one way or the other, sometimes the reason for that is because you filed your teeth at different lengths. You might not notice it when you're cutting smaller wood because there's just not enough wood there to make a difference. But when you get into bigger logs, as you get farther down the log, you'll notice that saw is, the bar is just, you know, cutting crooked, and then it starts getting stuck when you try to take it out, or it gets stuck when you're cutting because it gets such an angle. I wanted to find the most extreme example as I could, and if you take a look here, when I'm filing this side of the saw, if I'm filing this way, I usually end up cutting a little bit deeper into the tooth, and I don't remove as much metal. But yet when I'm filing from the other side, and my body would be on the other side, when I file this way, I usually hold the file a little bit higher, and I remove more metal quicker. So what happens is if you take a look at this tooth is significantly shorter than this tooth here. Now what you can do to compensate for that, and what I usually do, is I'll take at least one, sometimes two strokes more when I'm filing from this side. I didn't do that for a few sharpenings, so we've got two different lengths. The shorter tooth is coming out at about 5.71 millimeters, and the longer tooth, 6.27. So let's say that it's a half a millimeter difference. Most of the cutting is being done by this tooth here, and what's going to happen is the saw is going to bite into the log farther on this side than it is when this cutter cuts. There's more than one reason your saw might be cutting crooked, but for me, 9 times out of 10, if it's cutting crooked, this is the reason. All we're going to need to fix this, 30 thousandths depth gauge tool, flat file, 7/32 file, marker to mark the tooth, guide for sharpening, magnifying safety glasses, leather gloves so I don't get cut. We are going to splurge and put a nice new file on the file holder. And we're also going to use our stump vise. When you're trying to figure out a spot to sharpen your saw, you know, you can do this on the ground, but it's really not comfortable to be filing like this. So what I try to do is find the highest log I can, and I'm going to kind of cheat where I made this pile of logs, and I'm going to put my stump vise over here. Before you do this, make sure you got your chain at the right tension. My chain is perfectly fine, so we're going to go with it. I got these safety glasses that have 200% magnification on them, and I'll put a link to that video right over in the corner of this video somewhere. What we're going to do is we're going to mark the tooth we're going to start off with. I made this little jig up. You can see that? It's got the angles I need on it, so I'll put that on the bar. I am going to start on the right hand side, the long side of the saw. I'm holding the tip of the file with my fingers, and I'm just grabbing the other end, and I'm just trying to hold this file as level as I can across the top of the tooth, and then you just go across the tooth, and we're pushing back. We're not pushing down, we're pushing back when we're doing this. And we're just going to keep filing until we get close to the length of the other tooth. I know this tooth is 5 0.31 millimeters. So if I take it down to around 5.3, that should be a good spot. I should be using my reference lines on this thing, just kind of eyeballing. It doesn't have to be super perfect, but it's better. And then just bang the file. Don't bang the file on the teeth, bang the file on the tip to clean it out, and we're good. I'm going to move my holder closer because the farther I get away from the stump vise, the more the bar wants to move. So I'm going to move a little closer when I'm working. And then, and I'm pushing back and even a little bit up as I'm doing this. The rule of thumb is you want to have 20 to 30% of the file above the tooth. And because I got the magnet, you see how the filings are kind of sticking to the tooth? Got a little farther to go. Wow. Okay, that's 2 down. We're always sharpening in the same spot on the bar, because if you sharpen at different spots, the chain could be sitting differently. So try to sharpen at the same spot on the bar for each tooth. Every once in a while, click your file out, and if you take a look, you'll see every once in a while I rotate it too. That evens the wear on the file, but I also notice when you rotate it, you get a cleaner spot, so it cuts better. Okay, there's 3. When you're filing, you want to be watching the front of the tooth, right there. Right there, you want to see a nice clean line where the file touches the tooth. What we're going to do is just work our way around the chain, see if we can get one side done, and then we'll switch to the other. Can you see the cool little growth on the magnet of all the metal filings? It's neat. We are going to start just behind the mark we made, and this side shouldn't need as much sharpening, but we're going to do the same idea, pushing back and see if we can get all these the same length. Now you see that only needed like 3 strokes. I had been taking 15 to 20 strokes off, so this side is going to go much quicker, and that's why it's always better to keep track of things as you're going than to wait until it's too late and you got to take a ton of metal off. And this is my less comfortable side by far for filing a chainsaw. I've got all the teeth now pretty much the same length. We'll take this screenshot and move it this way, and we'll put the original shot of the teeth over on this side and just take a look at the difference between how long the teeth are and how uniform they are here as opposed to the other side. Because we took so much metal off, we want to go ahead and check our depth gauges. We just take our depth gauge tool, we lay it on top, and then I just lay my file over it, and there's actually, I'm not bumping anything there. So that one's fine. So then we'll move to the next one. We're filing every other tooth. I guess I had them pretty low because they're all perfectly fine. So I'm just catching a little bit on this one. So what I would do is if one was high, you're just gonna take a stroke across. You're trying to stroke perpendicular, 1 or 2 strokes across the top. It doesn't take much. And then you're going to round off the front. I take a couple light strokes. And then we just keep moving. And I'm going to do this on both sides of the bar. And I'm only checking the cutters that I would sharpen from this side. I've checked all my depth gauges. All my depth gauges are at 30 thousandths. So when we start cutting with this, it should cut straight and it should cut fast, because rather than just one side cutting all the wood, both sides will cut the wood because they're near the same height. And these guys are razor sharp. Guys, I'm not sure how much battery life I got left. The little thing's flicking on the screen there. So I'm gonna make it a quick close. I used to bring my saw to a shop to be sharpened quite a while ago. And you know, sometimes they'd sharpen the saw, but they wouldn't touch the depth gauges. So even though it was sharp, it wouldn't actually cut into the log. So I started, I mean, it's been a long process to learn how to hand file a saw, but I assure you, you can learn and you'll get better each time. One thing I want to caution you about is be careful taking your depth gauges too low. If we go back and play the clip when I cut the first logs, my depth gauges were too low there, and there were a couple times it kind of jumped because it was taking such a big bite that those teeth really caught and through the saw, which could lead to kickback. So you want to be careful not to go super low with your depth gauges and keep everything even, because I don't know if you noticed, but when we did our second set of cuts, maybe it didn't cut that much faster, but it sure as heck was a lot smoother and a lot safer. When I'm cutting, I usually at the end of the day or before the day starts, usually I try to make it the end of the day, I try to go through and do one really good sharpening on my saw where I make all the teeth the same length, all the depth gauges the same height, so when I start the next time, everything is right where it needs to be. And then when I start cutting, I'm usually only doing a maintenance sharpening, which is for me 2 to 4 strokes per tooth, just enough to get that edge back. Hand filing a chainsaw, it takes time, you can do it, just don't make your depth gauges too low, because that saw is going to come back at you and hurt you bad, and make sure you're filing both sides of the cutters to the same length, and you're well on your way. Have a great day, folks, and we'll see you soon. Take care. And I'm going to see if I can hold these over the saw with the video camera showing and kind of show you the difference. And it's just amazing, guys. You can easily double your productivity when sharpening chainsaws or anything. It's just a really, really great idea. It's right there in front of me. I can just line up my marks and just keep moving right through. It's very hard not to sharpen the whole saw.